The mist is already thick when I arrive. It rolls in from the hills in slow, heavy waves, swallowing the lower stones first, then climbing unhurried, inevitable until the remaining towers disappear into the gray. I stand at the edge of what was once a road, barely visible now beneath centuries of grass and heather, and I look at what's left of the castle. It is not a ruin in the soft, romantic sense. It is a wound in the landscape. The main wall has partially collapsed along the eastern face, leaving a jagged mouth of broken stone open to the sky. The Great Hall. I can tell it was a great hall by the width of the surviving walls, and the ghost of an archway still standing on the northern end has no roof. Hasn't had one in a very long time. Moss has colonized every horizontal surface. Saplings have pushed through cracks in the flagstone floor. A birch tree, already taller than I am, grows directly from the rubble in the corner of what might have been a solar. A private chamber, catching the pale Scottish light through a gap in the stones. I don't know who built this place. There are no signs, no markers, no plaques. The nearest village is 14 kilometers away, and the people there knew of it only as the old castle on the Muir Hill, something their grandparents had mentioned. Something that had been abandoned for so long that even its name had been lost. Nobody owns it. Or nobody who can be found. For now, for the purposes of what I'm about to attempt, I'm treating that as an invitation. I walk the perimeter slowly. The ground is wet underfoot. My boots sink slightly with each step. The heather springy and soft beneath the mud. The outer curtain wall, the defensive wall that would once have enclosed the entire compound, is still largely intact on three sides. Stone this thick, this well laid, built to outlast sieges and centuries, doesn't give up easily. The eastern breach is the exception. A section, perhaps 8 meters wide, has come down, probably from root damage and frost expansion over many, many winters. The stones aren't gone, they're right there, piled where they fell, most of them still intact. That matters. I'll need them back. The main tower is the best preserved structure. 4 stories, still standing. The roof is gone and the upper interior is exposed to weather, but the walls themselves are solid. I put my hand flat against the stone. It's cold, deeply cold. The kind of cold that comes from centuries of Scottish winters absorbed into the rock. But it doesn't flex, doesn't crumble. This stone is good. The mortar between courses near the base is still holding. Higher up, where weather has done more damage, there's pointing to be redone, but the structural integrity of the tower is not in question. I spend the rest of that first day simply looking, walking room to room or what's left of rooms, standing in the roofless great hall and trying to feel the shape of the space. Climbing, carefully, the spiral stair inside the tower to reach the 3rd floor, which still has its wooden floor beams in place, though the boards that would have rested on them are long gone. From up here, I can see across the moorland in every direction. The hills fold and roll under their cover of heather, turning purple-gray in the late afternoon light. There is no other building visible, no road, no power line, just land and sky and wind. I understand, standing here, what drew someone to build on this hill 700 years ago. The views alone would have been a kind of power. But there's something else too, a particular quality of silence, not emptiness, something older than that. The land has a weight here, a presence that presses against you gently from all sides. I feel it and I don't have a word for it. I come back down slowly, tracing each step of the spiral stair, running my hand along the curved inner wall. The stones are worn smooth at shoulder height, where generations of hands have done exactly what I'm doing now. I think about all the people who walked this stair before me. I think about what it means to bring this place back to life. It feels less like a construction project and more like a responsibility. I camp at the edge of the courtyard that first night. My tent is small, and the wind off the moorland tests it steadily all through the dark hours. I lie and listen to it, the low moan of air moving through gaps in the broken wall, the soft percussion of rain starting somewhere after midnight, the distant, impossible cry of something I can't identify. Moorland sounds, old sounds. I don't sleep much, but it's not an anxious wakefulness. It's more like listening, more like learning the rhythm of a place before you begin to work within it. By morning, I have a plan. Abandoned medieval castle, Scotland, misty moorland, morning light. The first thing is assessment and documentation. Before I touch a single stone, I need to understand what's here. I spend 3 full days doing nothing but recording photographs, measurements, sketches. I map every room, every wall, every surviving architectural feature. I note where mortar has failed, where stones have shifted, where water infiltration has caused damage. I catalog every stone from the collapsed eastern section, numbering them with chalk so I'll know roughly where each one came from. This part of the work is invisible. Nobody would make a video of it. But it is the most important work I'll do, because every decision that comes after depends on what I learn now. The castle, as best I can reconstruct it, had several key spaces. The Great Hall taking up most of the ground floor of the main range. With a massive fireplace on the north wall, the fireplace is still there, still intact, still extraordinary. A stone arch nearly 3 meters wide and 2 meters tall. Above the hall would have been the solar and perhaps a guest chamber. The tower was separate but connected by a short passage. There was a kitchen area in what I'm now thinking of as the West Range. I can tell from the scorch marks on the stones and the remains of a smaller hearth. Outside the main building, within the curtain wall, there would have been outbuildings, stables, storage, perhaps a well. The well I've already found, filled with debris but structurally intact, right in the center of the courtyard. By the end of the third day, I have a clear picture of what's salvageable and what needs rebuilding. The good news? Far more is salvageable than I initially thought. The walls of the main range, the Great Hall, the tower, all structurally sound. The eastern curtain breach needs to be repaired. The Great Hall needs a roof. The tower floors need to be rebuilt. The great fireplace needs its chimney reconstructed above the roofline. And the entire interior needs to be cleared, cleaned, repointed, and made livable. The scale of it sits with me that evening. I'm crouched by a small fire I've built in the courtyard, eating something simple from a pan, watching the last light leave the sky in bands of cold, violet, and rose. The mist is coming back in from the east. I know what I'm taking on. I've known since I first saw this place. That's not the question. The question is where to start. The answer is always the same, the foundation, not metaphorically, literally. Before anything goes up, the drainage has to be right. Centuries of debris have blocked the channels that would have carried rainwater out from the courtyard and away from the walls. Standing water is the enemy of old stone. Every winter, water finds its way into cracks, freezes, expands, pushes. The frost damage I'm seeing on the upper courses of every wall is the direct result of water that had nowhere to go. Fix the drainage, and you give the walls a future. I start with the courtyard the next morning. It takes 2 full days of digging, careful digging, because I'm working through layers of compacted history, debris, and soil to find and clear the original drainage channels cut into the bedrock beneath the courtyard floor. They're still there, stone-lined, perfectly engineered. Once cleared, they drain efficiently. I stand and watch the water from a steady rain move purposefully through them and out through a culvert in the base of the curtain wall. Something that hasn't happened in probably 100 years. A small thing, a foundational thing. Medieval castle courtyard restoration drainage work stone. The eastern wall breach is next. This is the most technically demanding phase of the entire project, and I know it going in. Dry stone construction, the art of stacking stone without mortar, using weight and geometry to create stability, is something I've worked with before. But never at this scale and never with the specific complexity of a medieval defensive wall. The original wall is nearly 2 meters thick. The breach is 8 meters wide. The stones that fell are heavy. The largest ones require levers and rollers and a rope and pulley system. I spent an afternoon rigging from the base of the old oak that grows just outside the curtain wall. I start from the base. Each stone goes back roughly where it came from. This is why the numbering mattered. Medieval masons understood interlocking geometry intuitively, and they built that geometry into every course. If I put stones back in the wrong order, I lose that structural relationship. I work slowly. I work from the bottom up, just as the original builders did, just as any builder must. The first day, I managed 3 courses. They're not high, but they're right. I check each stone for level, for fit, for the degree of interlock with its neighbors. When I find a stone that doesn't sit quite right, I take it back out and re-examine it, turn it, try it in a different orientation. Sometimes the right position is immediately obvious. When you look at the wear pattern on the stone's surface, the places where it touched adjacent stones for 600 years leave marks. The stone remembers how it fit. By the end of the 4th day of wall work, I can see the breach closing. By the end of the 7th, the wall is up to its original height, and I've used every one of the numbered stones. The fit isn't perfect. Some gaps are wider than I'd like. Some courses are not as tight as the original work. But the wall is standing. The courtyard is enclosed again. I walked the full perimeter of the castle that evening. The curtain wall, unbroken. The enclosure whole again for the first time in what? A century? More? I don't try to calculate it. I just feel the completeness of the shape. The castle is no longer a collection of surviving fragments. It is a closed form again, a defined space. Something that says, here, within these walls, there is inside. The rain comes in overnight, harder than anything I've dealt with yet. I'm still camping in the courtyard and I lie in my tent, listening to it hammer the canvas, watching the drainage channels carry it efficiently away, feeling unreasonably satisfied. The next phase is the well. I need a reliable water source, and the castle's own well, once cleared and functional, is the obvious answer. I spend 2 days removing debris carefully, layer by layer, lowering a rope bucket and hauling material up by hand. The well is deep. Medieval wells in Scotland had to be, to reach below the frost line and into reliable aquifers. This one goes down at least 12 meters. At 9 meters, I hit water. Clear, dark, cold water, welling up into the bottom of the shaft. I check it, let it settle, check it again. It's running, it's clean. I rig a simple windlass, a wooden frame with a horizontal axle, 2 handles, and a rope-wound drum over the well mouth, using oak timber from a fallen tree I found at the edge of the moorland to the north. It takes a half day to build, and it works smoothly when I turn the handles. The bucket drops, fills, comes back up, dripping cold water that catches the morning light. I pull a full bucket and drink directly from it, letting it run down my chin and neck, and it is so cold it makes my teeth ache. Medieval stone well restoration, Courtyard, Scotland. The roof of the Great Hall is the project within the project, the thing everything else has been building toward, and the thing that will transform this shell of a building into something habitable. Without a roof, the walls are scenery. With a roof, the hall becomes a room. And not just any room, a great room, the central living space of the castle, 17 meters long and 9 wide, with that extraordinary fireplace at its north end and the ghost of high windows on both long walls. The original roof would have been steep timber framing covered with stone slates. Stone slates in this part of Scotland are still quarried, the same stone, the same technique, handed down without interruption. I've arranged a supply, but getting it to the site requires a track laid across the moorland by a contractor I hired for 1 day with a small tracked vehicle. The materials arrive on pallets, bundles of green oak timber for the frame, stacks of graded stone slates, lime mortar, and galvanized ridge hardware. I spend a day organizing the material into the courtyard, and then the contractor and his machine leave, and I am alone with all of it. The first task is rebuilding the wall, heads the tops of the hall walls to create a level and stable base for the roof plates. The walls have settled unevenly over the centuries, and their tops are nowhere near level. I build them up using lime, mortar, and flat stones, checking constantly with a long spirit level, working slowly around the entire perimeter of the hall until the heads are even. This takes 3 days and produces results that are invisible but critical. The roof plates go on next long oak beams that rest on the wall heads and provide the base from which everything else rises. They are heavy and awkward, and getting them into position is a problem I solve with a tripod and pulley system that I assemble over several hours from salvaged timber and rope. Each beam has to be lifted, swung, guided into position, and temporarily braced while I check its level and alignment. By the time the plates are all down and the bracing is in place, the light is gone and I eat dinner leaning against the south wall of the hall, watching stars appear in the rectangle of sky that is still the ceiling. The rafters go up over the following days. The ridge beam first central, running the length of the hall, elevated above the plates by 2 pairs of principal rafters and king posts. I work from simple geometry, the same proportions that would have been used in the original construction, derived from the surviving clues in the wall structure. The pitch of the roof matters. Too shallow and rain finds its way under the slates. Too steep and wind loads become dangerous. I aim for a 45-degree pitch, traditional for this latitude, proven over centuries. As each rafter pair goes up and is secured, the skeleton of the roof becomes more visible, and the change in the character of the hall is immediate. Suddenly, there is a sense of enclosure even before the slates go on. The open sky is divided and structured by the timber frame. Light falls through the frame in bars and angles. The hall begins to feel like itself again. Great Hall, medieval castle roof frame, oak timber, restoration, Scotland. Then the rain comes back. Not ordinary Scottish rain, 5 days of it, continuous and heavy, rolling in off the Atlantic in systems that stack up against the hills and unload without apology. My side cover a large, waterproof tarpaulin rigged over the wall head level to protect the timber holds for the first 3 days, and then fails along one ridge where a gust has worked the grommets loose. I scramble up in driving rain to repair it, my hands numb against the rope, the wind trying to take the tarp entirely, and for about 40 minutes, it's genuinely difficult, not dangerous, but hard. The kind of physical hard that narrows your world down to the immediate problem and nothing else. I get it secure. I come back down. I am completely soaked and very cold, and I stand in the shelter of the tower doorway and watch the rain fall in heavy vertical sheets across the courtyard. And I feel, against all reason, fine, more than fine. The tarp is holding, the timber is dry under it. Tomorrow, I can work. The slating is methodical work, the kind I like best. Starting at the eaves, the lowest edge of the roof, and working upward, each course of slates overlapping the one below it. The slates are graded by size. The largest ones at the bottom where they need to shed the most water, diminishing as you rise. Each slate is nailed to the battens I've fixed across the rafters. 2 nails, always 2, for redundancy. The sound as I work, the click of slate on slate, the tap of the hammer, the settling weight of each new course builds a kind of rhythm that carries me through the hours. It takes 9 days to complete the slating. On the last day, I fix the ridge tile's heavy, specially shaped pieces that cap the apex of the roof on both sides, sealed with lime mortar. I press the last one into place, smooth the mortar with a wet brush, and sit up on the ridge itself for a moment, straddling it, looking out across the moorland in both directions. From up here, I can see for miles. The hills roll away in every direction, their surfaces shifting between green and brown and gray as the clouds move over them. The castle below me is no longer a ruin. It is a building. It has a roof. It is, for the first time in a very long time, protected from the sky. I climb back down slowly, check my footing at every step. When I reach the courtyard, I walk to the north door of the hall and push it open. The door is temporary, a heavy plank construction I built in the first week, and step inside. The great hall, under its new roof, is extraordinary. The light comes through the high windows. I've installed temporary wooden shutters, but they're open now in long slanted beams that fall across the old flagstone floor and illuminate the dust still rising from my work. The walls, 3/4 of a meter thick, hold the space in a particular way. The room has a gravity to it, a physical weight that I don't think has anything to do with the stone. It has to do with everything that happened within these walls. It has to do with all the fires that burned in that great hearth, all the people who stood in this room, all the years and seasons that this space absorbed. I stand in the center of the hall for a long time, not doing anything, just standing. Great hall, medieval castle, restored interior, Scotland, warm light stone floor. The fireplace is the heart of everything. Without it working, actually working, drawing well, burning hot and clean, the hall is just a large cold room. With it, the hall becomes what it was built to be, a gathering place against the cold, a source of warmth and light that defines the experience of being inside. The fireplace itself, the arch, the lintel stone, the cheeks and back of the firebox is all original and in remarkable condition. The stonework is precise, cut by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The lintel stone, a single piece of local sandstone more than 2 meters long, is carved with a simple repeating pattern that I clean carefully with a soft brush and water over the course of an afternoon. Under the centuries of soot and lichen, the carving emerges fresh-looking, its lines still sharp. Chevrons. Simple, strong, repeated. What's missing is the chimney stack above the roofline. The original stack collapsed how long ago? I don't know, and when the roof was lost, what remained of the internal flue was exposed to weather and gradually filled with debris. I spend a day clearing the flue carefully, removing material from the top down, and find that the internal structure is sound up to the point where it passes through the roof. Building the chimney stack is satisfying in the way that all visible, prominent work is satisfying. It rises above the ridge and courses of salvaged stone from other collapsed sections of the building. That is the right size and character, mortared with lime, and carefully laid to a slightly tapering form that sheds wind and rain. The pot, the fired terracotta cylinder at the top that creates the draw, I source from a traditional supplier in the nearest large town, traveling there and back in a day. When the mortar has cured, I give it 4 full days. Even though I'm impatient, I lay the first fire. Small to start. You need to warm the flue gradually before you can push a serious fire through it. I use thin splits of dry birch, stacked loosely, with kindling beneath them, and a single sheet of paper for ignition. The paper catches, the kindling takes, the birch splits begin to glow. I watch the smoke. At first, it moves uncertainly, filling the firebox, exploring, then slowly, then decisively, it rises. The draw catches. The smoke rises cleanly into the flue and disappears. I can hear the change in the fire's sound as the draw establishes itself. The low roar of air being pulled through the firebox. The crackle of the burning wood sharpening in intensity. I add larger pieces. Oak now, split into rounds the diameter of my forearm. The fire builds. The heat begins to push out into the hall. I step back and watch the firelight move across the old stone walls and the ceiling of the new roof and the carved chevron pattern on the lintel. And the hall is no longer a restoration project or a construction challenge or a historical curiosity. It is, for the first time in however many generations, alive. Medieval Great Hall, fireplace, burning Scotland, stone arch restoration, warm light. With the shell of the building secured and the hall heated, I move into the interior work, the things that turn a structure into a home. This is slower work, more careful, more personal. Each decision has to be made twice, once for function, once for character. I want everything I add to belong here. I don't want the castle to look like it's been restored by someone from the 21st century who had opinions. I want it to look like it continued. The floors in the hall are original flagstone, remarkable and largely intact, just buried under a century's accumulation of debris, soil, and organic material. I clean them section by section, working on my knees with a stiff brush and water, lifting accumulated layers with wooden scrapers to avoid scratching the stone surface. The flags emerge gray and blue-gray and silver, some streaked with quartz that catches the firelight. The floor of a medieval great hall, cleaned and visible for the first time in who knows how long. The tower floors are a different matter. The original beams are there, but the boarding is gone. I mill planks from the oak trunks I found on the moorland using a 2-person frame saw, working methodically through each trunk and fit them to the beams with wooden pegs rather than nails, which is more work but the right choice aesthetically. The planks are not perfectly flat. They have grain and knot and variation. They are oak, which will darken with age and wear to the color of old honey. They belong here. The windows are perhaps the most technically interesting challenge. The original window openings in the Great Hall are large. The hall was designed to bring in as much of the northern light as possible, and the original sills and jambs are stone, beautifully formed, with deep embrasures that would have held shutters, possibly simple glazing in the later period of the castle's use. I install wooden shutters, fitted to the stone reveals and hung on hand-forged iron pintles. They open outward and latch with wooden turnbuckles. Simple, robust, traditional. The tower rooms I furnish minimally. A sleeping platform in the first floor room, built from the milled oak planks, raised off the floor on short stone footings. A simple table and bench in the second floor room. A storage chest at the base of the stairs. Each piece I build myself. In the evenings, by firelight, using hand tools, draw knife, and spokeshave for shaping. Mortise and tenon joinery, wooden pegs. The work is slow and the results are modest. Nothing like fine furniture, but everything fits the scale and character of the rooms. The Great Hall I leave largely unfurnished. It doesn't need furniture. The space itself is the point. I build a long table from a single slab of oak that I find in the collapsed section of the West Range. A beam so massive it took me most of a day to move it into position and set it on trestle legs in the center of the hall. 2 benches alongside it. Candles and iron holders I make by bending salvaged metal rod over a stone form. A stack of dry oak and birch beside the hearth. Medieval castle interior Scotland. Stone walls, wooden floor, candlelight restoration. The garden inside the curtain wall is the last major project and, in some ways, the most unlikely. A kitchen garden within the walls of a medieval castle is not an anachronism castle. Enclosures were typically productive spaces, with herbs and vegetables grown for the household. What I'm creating is a continuation of that tradition, not an imposition on it. The courtyard's stone-lined beds I clear and fill with compost I've been building from organic debris cleared from the hall interior, centuries of accumulated leaf matter mixed with fresh straw and kitchen waste. The soil it produces is dark and rich. I plant it with what would have made sense here. Kale and leeks, hardy in the Scottish climate. Herbs, thyme, rosemary. Sage in the sheltered angle between the hall and the tower, where the stone walls catch and hold warmth. Garlic set in a long bed along the south-facing wall, where it will get the most sun. A small apple tree, a heritage variety, espaliered against the west wall. Rhubarb in the northwest corner, where it will get moisture from the drainage channel. It will take years to establish fully. The apple tree will take longer still, but beginnings are made in acts, not outcomes. And I press each bulb and plant into the dark earth with the same deliberateness I brought to each stone in the curtain wall. What I plant today will be here long after I am. The last detail is the most personal. In the Great Hall, above the fireplace, I set a single flat stone found in the rubble of the East Range. Smooth, roughly rectangular, about the size of a serving board. On it, using a cold chisel and a light hammer, I cut a simple mark, the date. Just the year, in Roman numerals. Nothing else. No name, no inscription. Just the year this hall was brought back into the world. A record in the same language as the chevrons on the lintel. A continuation. I work slowly on the cutting, focusing on each stroke, keeping the lines clean. The sound of chisel on stone is quiet, precise, intimate. The chips of sandstone fall onto the hearth. When I finish, I stand back and look at the numbers carved into the stone, clean and plain above the arch of the fireplace. Then I build the fire. Medieval Castle, Scotland, Great Hall. Fireplace, stone inscription, carved restoration. The first full night in the castle is in late autumn, weeks after I arrived, and the mist is back, thicker than ever, pressing against the curtain wall and filling the spaces between the stones with its white silence. Inside the hall, the fire is built high, and the warmth it pushes into the room is substantial. The stone walls absorbing it and radiating it back slowly, the whole room holding the temperature in a way no thin-walled modern building ever could. I sit at the long table. I have food bread I baked earlier on the hearthstone, cheese and salted butter, an onion soup made from what the garden's first tentative plantings have produced, plus stock I've been cooking all day. A cup of something warm. Outside, the wind is moving over the moors in long sweeps, the heather bending and recovering. Inside, none of that. The candles on the table don't flicker. The fire draws steadily. The stone walls hold the warmth, hold the light, hold the silence. I eat slowly. I'm not in a hurry. There's nowhere to be. There hasn't been. For weeks. And somehow, only now sitting here in this hall with its new roof and its old stones, and its fire going in the hearth where fires have gone for 700 years, does that feel not like isolation, but like something much closer to freedom? After dinner, I sit for a long time without moving. The fire settles as the larger pieces of oak find their centers of gravity and shift. The hall creaks faintly thermal expansion in the new timber, the roof settling into the positions it will hold for a very long time. These are good sounds. A building finding its balance. A small bird, a wren, I think, though in the candlelight I can't be certain, has come in through one of the shutterless windows and perches now on the top of the stone arch above the fireplace. It sits there watching me, with the complete unconcerned presence that very small things have in very large spaces. We look at each other, then it drops off the arch, circles the hall once in the candlelight, and disappears back out through the window into the mist. I smile at that. The castle having its first visitor. Medieval castle, Scotland. Great hall interior night. Fireplace, warm candles, mist. There is still so much to do. There always is. The West Range needs attention. I've barely touched it. Its stones still collapsed and jumbled. Its potential unrealized. The upper floor of the tower needs its proper ceiling replaced. The outer approach, the track through the moorland, needs a bridge over the small burn that crosses it right now. I ford it, which is fine most of the year and genuinely unpleasant in February. The kitchen space needs to be fitted out properly. The garden needs a wall of its own, a lower one, to create a microclimate for the more tender plants. I know all of this. I think about it sometimes in the evening, making lists in a notebook, sketching rough plans for the next phases. But I've stopped feeling the urgency about it that I felt in the beginning, when every unfinished thing felt like a failing. The castle has waited 7 centuries for someone to return to it. It can wait a little longer for the West Range. What I feel now, more than urgency or ambition, is something quieter. Something that took me a while to recognize because I hadn't felt it before in quite this form. It's the particular peace of being exactly where you're supposed to be. Not a peace you find, or decide to feel, or practice into existence. Just the peace of a life fitting its container. This hall, this hill, these moors stretching away under their perpetual gray sky. Beautiful in the way that things are beautiful when they have no interest in being anything other than what they are. I found this castle because I needed to build something. I'm not sure I understood that going in. I thought I was looking for a project. I think now that I was looking for a place that would ask more of me than I thought I had to give, and then discover that I had it. The work was always the point. The walls going up, the roof going on, the fire catching in the old hearth. Not the finished thing, but the process of finishing. Not the castle as it is now, but the castle as it became. Each day, under my hands. The wren comes back in the morning. I find it in the great hall when I come down from the tower, hopping across the flagstone floor between the table legs, hunting for something small enough to interest it. It regards me without alarm. I build the fire while it watches. By the time the flames are going and the hall is warming, the bird has found its way back out, and I am alone again in the way that is not loneliness, surrounded by the old stones, by the smoke rising clean into the new chimney, by the sound of rain beginning on the slate roof above me. The roof holds. I knew it would, but it is still good to hear the rain against the slates, that particular intimate drumming, and the hall warm and dry beneath it. Everything outside, everything inside, a line drawn in stone and timber and time, holding fast. I put the kettle on. I open the shutters on the south window and lean on the sill and look out across the courtyard, the cleared flagstones, the garden beds, the curtain wall closed and complete, the oak tree beyond the gate bending slightly in the wind. The mist is lower today, sitting on the valley floor and leaving the hilltops clear. The castle stands on its hill in the pale autumn morning, its stones dark with rain, its chimney smoking, its roof slick and gray and whole. It looks, from out here, like it was never anything other than what it is now, like it was always standing, like nothing was ever lost. I think about that for a while, leaning on the windowsill while the kettle comes to the boil, about what it means to give something back to itself, about whether a place can be grateful or whether gratitude is something only people feel, and whether, in the end, that distinction matters. The kettle calls me back. I leave the window. I pour. I sit at the long table in the hall, my hands rebuilt, in the castle that was waiting, on the hill that holds us both, and I drink my tea in the warmth and the quiet and the particular light of a Scottish morning breaking through rain. And I am, in every way that counts, home.
The roof is holding fast despite the rain. It's a line drawn in time, isn't it? A warm home against the grey world.